So now you've probably gotten a opportunity to see how awesome it is to be able to animate various types of attributes using jQuery. Animating color is a little bit different from animating the other elements, and that's probably something that you're going to want to do at some point. So in order to use color, you're actually going to have to download the color plugin from jQuery. So if you go to the jQuery website, and I have just searched for color in the plugins area, and this is the one that you're going to want to get, Color Animations 1.0. So if you go ahead and download this, you can either download it or just view the color file and save it to your scripts file, then you'll be ready to go. So you're going to need to get that first in order to animate color, and the reason it's not included in the core library is because it is a bit of substantial code, so no sense in including that if that's something that you don't need to actually use by default. So you'll get the color plugin, and in my source code I've already made a reference to the jQuery.color.js scripts file so that my file is all ready to actually use the plugin. And we're starting on a file that we're obviously familiar with. It's just our regular Fruitopia website where we have the navigation that slides down. Currently the text is changing color because I have written a little bit of CSS in the CSS file that is going ahead and changing the color of the text on the hover of the A tag in the nav section. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to give this a little bit more interest by actually adding some more sophisticated color effects to it, and we'll do that with jQuery. So I'm going to go into my scripts file, and the first thing that we'll do is we'll colorize the tabs, but we're not just going to color them like we did in one of the previous exercises. We're going to actually make them animate so that when you hover over, the tabs will kind of fade into another color, just to give it a little bit more oomph and just to experiment with jQuery. So the first thing I need to do is I need to target what it is that I want to be affected, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to affect the ul.nav.li. So the list items that are part of the nav class are going to be affected, and then we're going to go ahead and tell jQuery that we want this to be initiated by the mouse hovering over, and we'll go ahead and run a function. And once we run that function, let's go ahead and give instructions for what we want to have happen. Let's just close this first. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come into my code and we'll go ahead and target using the keyword this. We actually want to cover the li items that we're scripting with right now, and we're going to want to use the .animate method, and then I'm going to put in parentheses and then in curly brace, because this is a CSS property that I want to be changing, and I'm going to need to use the camel case, so I'll slam background color together like so, then I'll use a colon, and then I'll go ahead and specify the actual color that I want to animate. So in this case we're going to use F18 and F48. So that's our color that we want to specify. So I'll close with the curly brace, and then I'm going to specify an amount in milliseconds that I want this to take to be able to run this little bit of animation that we have right here. And then we're going to go ahead and, so that's when, remember when we're doing an event handler, we have to have what happens in this case when you hover, and then we're going to write another function for how the page is going to deal with when the user mouse is off, not hovering anymore. So we'll go ahead and write another jQuery statement, and again we're targeting this just like we did before, and this time we will do a .animate, and we'll open our parentheses, curly brace, and we'll just set the background color to be back to its original setting. So we're going to use our FC3 color, which is the color that we're currently using, and I need to make sure I include the hash there so that the color is red appropriately in all the browsers. we'll terminate the curly brace, and then we'll put the time that the animation is going to actually take. So we have some sort of script error. Let me just check this real quick. Here it is. I'm just missing my opening and closing parenthesis on the function. Alright, so that looks good now. Let's save our page and let's go ahead and preview this in the browser. I'll refresh my page here, and now when I hover over the tabs, you can see that they fade in and then fade out. So this creates a really nice and a bit of an elegant look to our navigation tabs. So as we mouse over the tabs, they will now fade in and out. Alright, let's add some more. Just since we're working with color, let's add a little bit something else. So in addition to doing that, I'm going to have the user, when the user actually clicks on, and we'll just do this on one of the buttons to start off with, but when the user clicks on one of the buttons, we'll just do the first button, the cocktail button, I'm going to have some color affect some of the various elements that we have on the page. So we'll go ahead and do a toggle to do this, and let's go ahead and run a function, and then I'm going to go ahead and give instructions for what we want that function actually to be. And in this one, we are going to start off by targeting the cocktail class any h2 inside the cocktail class. So this will style the headers here. And the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to delay my set of instructions from happening for just a second so that the page actually loads, so then the user will actually see the change happening. And then we'll chain together the next set of instructions. We're going to animate, and we'll do an animate on the background color. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to change the background color to be a red. We're going to use AA0000. I guess we could actually use the shortcut method of targeting that color. And let's also change the actual text color itself. So I'm going to put a comma, and then I'm going to put the next CSS property that I want to change, and we'll go ahead and we'll just make the text color white. And I'm also going to change, let's go ahead and change the width of this as well. So we'll type width and we'll type 600 here. And then I'm going to close my curly brace because I'm done with the CSS styles. I'm going to put a comma, and I'm going to type the amount of time that I want the animation to occur. So again, we'll use 1,000, which will give us 1 second. In addition to styling the cocktails H2, we're going to also go ahead and style the cocktails, and we're going to do a pseudo selector of P first and strong. So it just so happens that in the first paragraph of the cocktail div, we have this bold statement that says you must be 21 to try this, because this fruit drink actually has alcohol in it, so we're specifying that. So it would be kind of nice if we made that a little bit more apparent to our users. So we're just going to call it out by putting a background color on that. So I'm going to go ahead and again delay this so that you'll have plenty of time to actually see the animation occur, just to call a little bit more attention to it. And then we're going to run the animate, and we'll again style the background color. And let's go ahead and make the background color, we'll use a light yellow. So I'm going to use FF9C. And let's go ahead and close that. I'm going to put in the amount of time that I want the animation to occur, and we'll make this one go a little bit slower. And then I'm going to put a dot delay again, because I want this to actually just show once with a background color, and then we're going to animate it going back to the default color, which is white. We don't want it to stay that color. So let's go ahead and type background color, and we'll go ahead and specify the background color here, and we'll change it back to white. Close my curly brace, and I'll put the amount of time that I want the change to occur, and again we're just going to use 1500 on that one. And that should do the trick for that first statement right there. Of course, we're doing a toggle, so I'm going to have to write what happens when I want, or the user is mousing away, and I'm actually just going to go ahead and copy this part of the code to make it go a little bit faster. So the first thing we're going to do is when they mouse away, we're going to have or when they click away, not mouse away, but click away in this case, we're going to have the Cocktails H2 animate. I'll get rid of this delay right there, we don't need that anymore, and we'll have it animate, and we're going to change the background color back to white, and we'll go ahead and specify the color of the text be what it was originally, and it was a green color, and here's the hex value for that. And we'll just get rid of this width. We're going to leave the width as it is, and we'll have this happen a little bit quicker, just in half a second. So we'll go ahead and type 500, and then on my first paragraph strong tag, I'm going to go ahead and run a delay, and then we'll animate the background color to be white. And let's have that happen in 15, we'll use 1500, I guess, again. And I'm missing my function up here, so let's go ahead and put that in. And I'll just indent these a little bit to make it easier to read. Okay, so this is a toggle. When the mouse is clicked, the H2 is going to animate. The strong tag within the first paragraph is also going to animate. Then when the mouse is clicked again, the H2 will animate back, and as well as the strong 2. Let's actually slow this one down a little bit. Alright, so if we save our page now, and we're going to refresh this in the browser, we can take a look at what color is going to do for us here. You can see I still mouse over the tabs, and they change color just like they did. If I click the first tab, the cocktail tab, you can see that this does change color, and now the 21 had that yellow background, and then that faded away as well. So if I click again, you can see that quickly changed back to the defaults. Here it is at the defaults. Header changes color, and our little "you must be 21 to try this" also changed. So these are some great effects that you can add into your project. They're really fun to be able to animate different elements in your project, and now you know how to use color.